Hello everyone, Brandon's Aquariums and Terrariums. This is a 36-gallon corner stand that I got off Facebook. The stand on it is a little bit weak from water damage, so we built a new one from Home Depot, which is what you'll see in a little bit. I've always been wanting a corner tank. This one, I believe it's out of production, but you can get different sizes, and I was really excited when I first got it. This was around October, and I'm making this video in April, so I've been working on this a very long time, and finally all the work has paid off. But the tank height is 27 inches, and it's 2 feet back to front. And also in the center we're going to be building a little shelf where we can house all the crickets that the frogs will be eating. This will be a paludarium, so there will be a land and a water area. So fish can live in the water and some White's tree frogs will live on land. White's tree frogs are from Australia, and they're going to be the main thing that's going to be living in this enclosure. So there's plenty of space inside where we'll be having different kinds of plants growing, and plenty of space for the frogs to hop around and the fish to swim in. And we went to Home Depot to buy the parts for the new stand. We're building this all ourselves. My dad and I did most of the work on this, and it turned out pretty well. The wood at Home Depot is pretty cheap, and we just had to drill a couple parts together as well as cut them. We also put some sort of a putty over it, so it'll be easier to paint. It turned out really well, I believe, and that little shelf will be housing all the crickets. So I'm just right now sanding down some of the rough edges so it'll be a lot easier and prettier once it's all painted. And now this is it when it's all done painted. It looks really nice. The reason we did it black is so it doesn't really take away from the beauty of the actual tank itself. And I also built the frame of the land area out of Connects just to see the dimensions of how it will look. Now for the barrier, I'll be using some rocks that we got from Home Depot. These are all very safe, and they're a lot cheaper than the ones you can get at a pet store. So I got some gaps and cracks expanding foam, and just put it down, then place rocks on top. I need to get rid of the access foam, so I can get a knife, razor scraper, or sometimes my fingers, and I'll just shave it off like this. It takes a little while, and it's a little tedious, but it's worth it at the end, because we don't want that white stuff being covered in. From the front view, we won't even see it, because it'll be covered in substrate. Now for this I was using super glue to build the rock wall up. This wasn't really a good idea, as later when I was when I put the tank on its side so I could build the background, the rock slowly started to fall apart, and I used silicone to rebuild it. But this took a very long time to build. It took several days to do, and I got this light for my for Christmas, and we'll be using it to light up the tank itself. I also started placing down some of the egg crate that we'll be using to hold up the tank, and it'll also provide protection to the pump and heater as well. And now we'll be starting on the waterfall. This was very fun to build. So right now I just have a couple pieces of styrofoam that I've cut, and we just need to carve them out and provide a place for the water to run through. These were just from some packages, and I just cut them up to this. You just pile them up like a stack of pancakes, like so, and slowly begin to carve out how you want it to look. That nasty white cover is going to be the nasty white color is all going to be covered up in dirt and sand and other things, so we won't see it. So the water's just going to rush down. The pump will pull up all the water. It takes a little while, and be very careful doing this. You're also going to want to clean it, because you're going to get a lot of nasty styrofoam everywhere, and you probably don't want that. I can use knives or my fingers or this razor scraper. I prefer using a knife, but for this job, the easiest thing was my fingers as well as the razor scraper. Just be careful not to cut yourself. This is all going to be covered, so I just need to get a very vague shape on it, and then make sure to vacuum everything down, not only because you don't want to mess, but your mom will be upset if you have a ton of styrofoam everywhere. And now, to make sure everything fits together perfectly, we're just going to be getting some Gorilla Glue. This is completely safe for fish and reptiles and everything. We just put a ton of it and spread it nice and evenly all over the waterfall. And then we just stack everything together like a pile of pancakes, and I think it looks pretty good. Now for some extra detailing, you can get little pieces of styrofoam and build up little structures. I did this, it got covered by moss and other things, so it really wasn't that important. I don't even see it right now. I just build up some structure, and I also have a little hole where the water pump hose can enter and send water through. I think it looks pretty good. Now for the false bottom. This is built out of egg crate as well as some zip ties. This will keep the dirt from falling under the water. With the excess zip tie, we just cut it off like so. It's very, these are very strong and it's all aquarium safe. So I did this side of the background off camera because it's my first time doing this and I prefer not to mess up. But we just get out a razor scraper, a knife, or sometimes your fingers, and we just begin to shave it all off. It's a very tedious thing to do, but it is very important, and this is all going to be covered in cocoa fiber and other things. I also placed some cool pieces of bark and rocks. I'll show you the other side of it later, but this is my first time doing it, and I really don't want to mess up. Sometimes you can use the excess pieces of the expanding foam. I used gaps and cracks. Expanding foam is completely safe. Now for the other side. So just like before, we're getting some we already have some bark there, and we're just going to cover up the entire back side of it in expanding foam. You always want to wear gloves because this will cause rashes and it sticks instantly to your skin. I tried it without it on the other side, and I probably shouldn't have, so please just wear gloves. They're kind of hard to find right now because of the pandemic, but they're very important for this. All of the bark I got from a place that wasn't sprayed with any pesticides or anything like that, so it's completely safe to use. The frogs don't really go inside, but they'll sometimes sit on top of them. So I also added some rocks in, so just add a little bit more detail, and I think it looks really nice. Just like before, we just have to slowly build up with expanding foam. You can get this at Home Depot or on Amazon. There's going to be a list of everything you need in the description, like the egg crate and everything like that. I'm just placing some more rocks in carefully so that all the frogs can sit on them. I also made sure that the waterfall was in there too, because that's where it's connected to the background. And now for the carving, just like on the other side, except this time it's a little bit easier, in this case, to use a knife, and that's what I'm going to be using. I usually prefer to use a knife, but depending on the job or the angle, it varies, and everyone's different, so just find what suits you and don't accidentally stab yourself. You always want to wait at least 2 days, preferably 3 or 4, just because I've had it before where I've cut inside and it's still wet, so you don't want that to happen. Now we're getting out some silicone. This is safe for the animals as well. We just want to put it all down here. This is what the dirt is going to bond, the cocoa fiber will bond to, as you see on the other side. I did that side off camera as well, just because it's my first time doing this, and I really don't want to mess up. There's also a small tube in the corner as well. That's going to bring all the wires there, so I can plug them in. So now I'm just rubbing with the gloves all down here, all the silicone, make sure it's all spread out nicely, and I'm going to be adding some dirt and sand and other things onto it. The waterfall is just going to, it's going to give it a more natural look, and I don't really like that white color, and you probably don't either. So I'm just going to spread it through, pat it in very nicely, and the silicone will bond the cocoa fiber to the background in the waterfall. And I have my trusty shovel. I can just put it on there and pat it in very nicely. Now it's on its side. It'll be a little bit easier to do this one now. So just like I said before, that corner, in the corner, that's a piece of PVC pipe, and that's going to connect the all the heaters, wires, as well as the pump that run through there. So if I need to do maintenance, I can just pull them out instead of pulling apart the entire paludarium. So now I'm, just like before, adding more silicone on. Just make sure you get a nice even coat everywhere. It's going to be spread out in a minute or two, and wear gloves because this bonds instantly to your hand, and it's very difficult to get out. And then just get your fingers and rub them through carefully. Make sure to not get this on the carpet as well. I didn't get any on, but still, it bonds instantly to the carpet. And I'm also getting it on the corner piece. That's going to be covered in dirt as well. Yeah, the dirt will make it look a lot nicer, as well as it'll be easier for plants to root in as well. And moss grows well in cocoa fiber too. It's a little bit of a tedious process, and make sure you have a fan going because liquid silicone smells awful. So either have a fan going where you're building this or do it in your garage or something like that. And just like before, get out all of your cocoa fiber. You can get this at a pet store or hardware store. I prefer getting it at a hardware store because you can get a lot more for the you can get a lot more bang for your buck with this. So just place it on very carefully. You can do a little bit more. I have a ton of it here. I got a brick and it just broke apart, so I have a lot to use. And then get your gloves out and begin patting it in very, very, pressing it in very hard, just like this. And I think that all looks really good. It looks a lot better than the plain white surface. And now, this is it short after. I've built some vines. I'll do another video on how to build those. We just did these off camera too. This is some geotextile fabric. That's going to keep the dirt from falling out. These are some lecca pellets, and these are going to provide bacteria. You can get these very cheap. I have like several hundred. I only used like half of them for this. And I built up underneath the false bottom. So now it's all filled in. This is going to provide a lot of bacteria as well as keep it all a little bit cleaner and just build up some mass so the fish can't go back there. And I rebuilt this using silicone. Same thing before, just instead of using the super glue, I used silicone and rebuilt it pretty much as close as I could. In between that space, I also added some more lecca pellets as well. And then I added in some more rocks up here. I ended up moving them because the water had trouble moving through them. but they're now just in the water area, so it's fine. Now I have the extra hose. I cut that, and it fits perfectly through that little hole. And I also got my DIY jungle vines and added them throughout the tank, so the frogs are going to love jumping around on them. And now for my favorite part, the mosses. So these are some little containers that I've been cultivating. They have many different kinds of mosses in them, and they're all doing very well in the tank. It's going to be humid, so moss does very, very well in that kind of situation. So I just begun to sprinkle them around the entire tank. It's going to help break down all of the frog poop, as well as just make it look a lot more natural. I added some up top as well. And now for the sand. So I just got a cup and got big cupfuls of sand. I washed this out before, just like I did with the rocks. It'll get rid of a lot of debris that I don't want in the water. And I also added a couple rocks in as well. And next we're going to get started on the other parts of the tank. So now we're going to plant the land area. So this is a snake head plant, and I just placed it in the tank. It's going to grow in very well. I also got some branches in too. These are these are from my backyard. They're safe. They have no pesticides on them. And sometimes the branches they just flop over, so this is a trick that I learned. Just place a piece of styrofoam, that'll prop it up, then you can just bury it underneath. Now it's nice and stable too. I also added a couple twigs into the background for detail. You can just place them in and the background will just hold on to them. Every little bit counts, and it makes it a lot more detailed, and the frogs love jumping around on them. And we're going to add in some red nerve plants. The list of every plant I have will be in the description. So I just cut off a piece of this and planted it in the tank. The frogs love them. This one is a rooted one. I also have a green one. These are growing in my bed of tanks in the land area. As well as I also have a peace lily that I got from my neighbor. That was very nice of her to give it to me. I also have some magnolia pods. These are going to break down over time, and the cleanup crew will love eating them, and it makes the tank a little bit more natural. The frogs also love sitting on them. I collected these all with my friend a couple months ago. These are some magnolia leaves and some oak leaves, and they're going to do very well in here. They're just going to break down, and the cleanup crew will eat them, as well as make the tank look a little bit more natural. So I added a couple onto the land area just like this. We also added some pothos in. The frogs love sitting on the leaves, and they've grown straight into the background and are doing very, very well. Now for the water area. This is some vallisnaria. The water is very foggy, so it's going to be hard to see, but they've sent out a lot of runners across the entire tank. And they're kind of like an aquatic grass. They do very well in these situations. I also have some crypts. Since the water area is going to be very tanned, they do well in low light. And now for the cleanup crew. So this terrarium has some springtails and isopods and things, and so I'm going to take a cup full of dirt and just add it in. There's some of it over there and a little bit back there. The springtails are going to reproduce and clean up the tank. So these are the 2 white street frogs I have. I don't know if they're boys or girls, but when I know whether they are or not, I need some name suggestions. So we'll do a video asking for name suggestions later. I also added a couple more plants in as well, and they are very easy to handle too. I can just hold them just like that. And there's me holding one. I always wear gloves because they drink through their skin, and I don't want all the oils in my skin on them. They eat a ton of crickets and other bugs, and they're very, very fun. And now for the water area. So I'm really sorry about this, but all the fish were very shy. There's 6 Serpae tetras in here and a Bolivian ram as well as another fish, but they're all hiding. So later I'll do a part 2 on this video. There's also a ton of leaves in the bottom of the tank, so it gives it a nice tea color, similar to what all the fish would experience in the wild. So, if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It does a lot for the channel, and I hope to see everyone on the next time. This has been enjoyable to make, and I will do a second part showing all the water area of the tank. Just all the fish are very shy, so I hope to see you guys all on the next one. Let me know what you think. Alright, goodbye.